Welcome to Life List, a birding podcast.
Hello and welcome, everybody. We are back with another episode of Life List, a birding podcast. My name is George Armistead, and I am here with both Mollee Brown and Alvaro Jaramillo. How are you guys doing today?
Hey, how are you?
Hey, you're going to stay awake for this podcast. We were just saying, I think we're all a little jet lagged now. So,
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
We've all been traveling, which is kind of nice. I mean, when we started this podcast, we were not traveling at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, look at us now.
Jet setting.
Too much.
Yeah.
It's a good problem to have, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, we should warn people that we're going to be talking about 3 hours now because we have so much to say.
I don't know if I'll stay awake for the next 3 hours. So.
Yeah.
All right, we'll keep it to the normal length. All right, you convinced me.
Nice. Yeah. Well, it has been good to be on the road, I think, for all of us. You guys talked a little bit about some of what you had coming up in the last episode, which was fun. I listened to that on my flight home from India, which we'll talk about that trip too. I'll start out with you, Alvaro. What have you been up to, man?
Well, I'll talk to you in a bit about my recent trip to Cuba, but I've been here a few days, and this is a really, at home, kind of a cool time of year to look at the backyard. I have the winter feeders going the whole time, and there's house finches and, goldfinches and the sparrows, which my main sparrows are white-crowned and golden-crowned in the winter, here in the backyard, and house sparrow. And fox every so often. But this time of year, all of the golden crowned sparrows basically in a 2-week, 3-week period just go boom, and they get their head colors, the classic breeding head color. And it's such a striking bird to see just the moment that they're all looking super good, they leave, and it's sort of a crescendo of the winter, to see the golden crowned sparrows, and they start, they just look so good. And, the goldfinches are bright yellow now, and it's kind of a fun thing to watch. After seeing the same birds all winter, they suddenly go colorful on you. So it's, I've been enjoying that. And the hummingbirds, there's Allen's hummingbirds here and stuff. So
The Anna's displaying?
Cool. Yeah, they're Anna's. I don't have the males displaying they winter here, but once the display time comes, they go somewhere else. And then I just have females that probably breed here in the yard somewhere. I've found the nests in the past, but their display areas are very specific. So they're almost like a lecking species. Same with the Allens. I don't get displaying males here, but I know exactly where to go and see them, not too far away. Yet the
pretty dramatic display when they're doing it. I think a lot of folks don't necessarily think of hummingbirds when it comes to cool displays, lecking behavior. Especially those of us in the East, we see ruby throats, and it's not quite the same as you have it out there. I remember a few years ago when I was visiting you and Brian Sullivan, seeing Anna's displaying like crazy, and it really knocked my socks off.
Yeah, they do these dives with a snap kind of sound at the bottom of the dive, which there's a lot of, early on people were like, what is that sound? Is that vocal or is it mechanical? And it turns out it's mechanical, right? They make it with their feathers on that dive. You can download, there's a video, a slow-mo video that shows how it happens. So it's pretty cool.
Is that the one they did in the wind tube or whatever it was?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a guy at Yale, I think it was Daniel Field, who was cataloging all mechanical sounds of birds, from, ruffed grouse to Anna's hummingbird to, bill clapping, wing clapping, all sorts of, it's not something people think about a whole lot, or not, the sounds that are not produced by the syrinx, but produced mechanically is a pretty cool thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, and all of these flycatchers that have primary feathers that are, attenuated, kind of spiky. They probably all use them to make a sound.
The male kingbirds.
Yeah, yet often it's not documented. So, you just sort of see that the birds have these feathers, sometimes really crazy looking feathers in some of the flycatchers in Latin America. And I noticed on these really great photos of parakeets a few weeks ago that were up online that some of the South American parakeets have these funny primaries as well. Like, so they're doing something. So yeah, I think,
Man,
it's pretty cool.
That is cool. Nice. Mollee Brown, what have you been up to?
Yeah, I don't have much of a report from my backyard because I just got
you
back.
haven't been there?
But yeah, I haven't been here. But yeah, so I talked about this on the last episode a little bit, but I took off to Central America, spent just a few days in El Salvador, and then went to Costa Rica and down to the Osa Peninsula for a little while. That was my first time down there, and that was fun. All of it was fun. Came back and have been running around a little bit for meetings and some work trips, and just got back from a week-long meeting with about 40 people that I'm working with out of DC and Nova Scotia on this carbon sequestration program. A couple weeks ago, they said, we want to all get together. Where can we get 40 hotel rooms for a week? And I thought, I bet you can find some in West Virginia. So they all came out. They're all out in the mountains. We were looking at habitat management programs. And then I had also a bunch of the first rounds of migrants were coming through too. And we were outside the whole time. So it was really fun to get to show people a lot of birds. And I was excited just about seeing them and just seeing activity pick up. So I just got back from that and ready to start enjoying the backyard a little bit more.
Oh, it's starting to go. Yeah, I got back yesterday and kind of rested, managed to sleep through the night, felt thankful for that, but actually got out today and did like a nice half day hike around Kristen, and I took the dog and did a loop around the Heinz Refuge. And yeah, I was noticing the same thing that, here in the East, spring is really starting to pop. When I left on the 14th of March, Old Man Winter still had his icy grip on the region. And man, it's a different story now. Cherries are blooming, and a few warblers are starting to move, and yeah, really something. So you had these 40 folks come in. Were you kind of in charge of hosting, or just kind of helped set up the lodging and so forth?
Yeah, I did a little bit of it. So I worked really closely with all of them. And I set up lodging at one of the state parks in the mountains in Canaan Valley here. And then it was sort of just like a team bonding retreat kind of thing too. And then meeting with landowners and going out and seeing people and seeing different habitats in the area. So I had a lot of say in that. And it's really fantastic in that part of the state and in the mountains. Tons of public access. It's all like National Wildlife Refuge and National Forest and state parks and wildlife management and that kind of thing. A lot of unique plants to see, some unique trees. There's I think it's just a subspecies, but a balsam subspecies that's just there in the valley and things like that. So just having people come geek out over that, and then also like showing them Louisiana water thrushes that had just got back and that kind of thing too. Yeah, it was so much fun. It was just great to get them all out there.
The point you made about public access, this is a really, really like cool thing. We don't think about it. We're often thinking about birds, right? We want to go to a place that's got a bunch of birds, like Texas, but Texas has very little public access. Like I was always surprised at how few places you can visit in Texas that you can just roam around. And maybe we should have like a more of a view of going to places where we can just roam around and look at different places and public trails. And there are some states, some regions that are really good at that, and other places that are not. And as birders, we should be taking that into consideration, because it's so much more fun to be able to just visit places, random places sometimes, So yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because like I said, I was in El Salvador and checking that out, and there were a lot of parks and everything. And I was totally surprised about how much there was to do and see there. And I can talk more about that later. But then went to Costa Rica, and I haven't been there since I was 16. That was my first international trip more than a decade ago. And so now I just came back, and I rented a car, and I was driving around, and I was with friends from there and who know the area really well. And it just totally amazed me that you can go anywhere. Like, you can get anywhere in Costa Rica, and just the attitude that landowners have.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's also public, and like, you just have to know where to go to end up, wherever off the beaten path or on the beaten path or wherever you want to be. And then coming back to West Virginia, particularly that part of the state, I think public access is actually a pretty big problem in a lot of the state here. But in that part of the state, I was thinking it's kind of the same thing. If you go up any road, you're going to end up on some trail system that you can access. And if you know it well enough, and if you study enough maps or spend enough time there, you can kind of figure out where some unique places and hidden gems are and that kind of thing too. I felt like there were a lot of similarities there.
That's pretty cool. I mean,
Yeah.
you really sort of kudos to the places that do have a lot of public access. I'm lucky here, in the San Francisco Bay Area, we have a lot of public access spots, especially the higher, sort of hilltops, mountains, ridges, and it's in an area that has really expensive land. So we feel lucky that it just wasn't all developed, and it's not lucky. People actually made it happen, right? There's people who planned this future that we're living today, which is great. But some other spots, it's really hard. And as a birder, you notice it so much. You're like, well, you can't go there, or you can't go there, or you can't go there.
Oh yeah. In most parts of the state here, I feel pretty weird, like pulling off the road and standing out there with my binoculars. I'm usually kind of nervous. Costa Rica, that was not the case. We were, just pulling off wherever, and it's just a completely different attitude. So then it's the public land access and what the private landowners' attitude and perceptions on who's welcome and who's not, and what's okay, and all of that too, that it shapes a big role. And it's really nice to be out birding and not worried about that.
Yeah. It's like those places in England, that have the, public trail system through like people's farms and stuff. And I remember asking somebody like, how does this work? How does the private property, whatever? And they were like, dude, these trails were here before property existed as a concept. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, these are pretty old trails, right? Yep. So, I wish we had a little bit more of that kind of attitude, where we're not always afraid of other people, that, people might actually come to the land to enjoy it rather than mess with it, right? It's sort of what the North American kind of thought process is like. They're here because they want my land or whatever, Yeah. Do you like my accent there?
It's pretty good. That's strong, man. Yeah.
I know. I could do a Canadian one, but I'm not going to do it now.
We'll save that for another time. Yeah.
When we have a Canadian topic.
Yeah. Well, Costa Rica is one place I'm eager to get back to, and I think something like 30% of the land is protected in national parks and reserves. It's crazy, and the culture there is built for birding. It's just they've always kind of I think of them as kind of the granddaddy of ecotourism. It's just like it's weaved into the fabric of society there, and boy, it would be nice to have that, see that around at a few more spots. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. 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 Well,
India,
that is good stuff. I definitely want to hear more about these travels. I'm sure everybody else will too. Yeah. I just returned from 25 days of traveling.
Whoa.
It was a long one. It was good. Kind of had two sections to it. The first part was me and Kristen in India, going to sort of the Central Plains, flying into Delhi, and we spent an afternoon in Delhi, went into the spice market area in Old Delhi, which is pretty wild. If anybody ever does that, I highly recommend getting a rickshaw ride around town. It's sensory overload, just like people everywhere. It's kind of a shock to the senses. One of the cool things there was we went into the main trading area, storing area of red chilies, red chili peppers. And you just see these huge sacks full of red chilies everywhere. And as you start to walk through, like your eyes start to water. And we were wearing masks because of, people are still being kind of careful in places there, even though they've actually removed the mask mandate in much of India now. There, you wanted it because the chilies in the air were so strong that it started to make you like cough or sneeze and your eyes water. It was like pretty overpowering. But it's like the hub of red chili trading right there. It's pretty impressive to see that, and then just see all the spices and everything right by the Red Fort there. That was pretty cool. That was on arrival. And we did some birding around Delhi. Went to see the Taj Mahal, went to Bharatpur, which is a famous wetland birding area, former hunting ground of the Maharajas way back in the day. And, lots of good stuff there. And then we did like a week-long loop kind of 4 different national parks in central India, primarily focusing on trying to see tigers. And I'm happy to say we were pretty successful with that. Following that, we went back to Delhi, and Kristen had to head home, do some work. She had to get back to work. They were limited time off for these nurses, so she had to get back. I continued on with some mutual friend of ours and some other folks I'd not met before. Went up high to the high Himalayas in the northern state of Ladakh to search for snow leopards. And that was quite a challenging week in many respects. It is an amazing place, an amazing landscape. You ever want to be in a landscape where you really feel small, you go up there and this huge range of the Himalayas, you're not that far from K2 in Pakistan. And then off to your east there is China and, the edge of the Tibetan plateau. And man, that is a landscape like nothing I've ever seen before. We spent 6 nights at almost 14,000 feet, high elevation, thin air, incredibly dry. It's technically a desert. It was pretty intense. And we did have some luck with the snow leopards. It was a heck of a trip, all told. Like I mentioned, I just got back yesterday, still experiencing a little fatigue and jet lag. But we saw 8 tigers. We saw 2 snow leopards, saw a leopard, regular old leopard, which is actually arguably my favorite cat, and a whole mess of birds. So, man, it was something else. It was a heck of a trip.
Wow. So, do people does anybody ever call them the Himalayas?
Yes, mostly they do there. Yes, the Himalayas. Yeah.
The Himalayas. I've never known what's, right or wrong, or if it's like one of those things that you can pronounce both ways, or it's like American versus British,
I think Himalayas
I feel
is
weird
pretty
saying Himalayas, it's like, hello, Himalayas.
I definitely feel like Himalayas is an American thing. Right. I stand to be corrected about this, but that is I feel like you only hear Americans say Himalayas.
Right. Yeah. Just like British people are the only people that say Nicaragua. Nicaragua. You mean Nicaragua?
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of I want to hear more about the snow leopards, but I don't know if you've seen this movie called 14 Peaks.
No.
About this guy, this Nepalese climber, Nimsdai Purja, I think is his name. Mm-hmm. Nims. And he goes and tries to do the impossible and climb essentially the 14 peaks that are above I forget how many meters, but it's the 14 highest mountains all in 1 year. And it's a pretty uplifting, cool story. And the team is all Nepalese. You know, they kind of, you know, they, in a sense, there's a backstory of like, you know, the Sherpas are always there, right, in all of these climbs, but they never get like sort of the full billing, you know. And it's like this time, it's like it's just Nepalese people doing all this, wow. And yeah, it's a really, I think it's called like Nothing's Impossible is the other name, like sort of the subtitle of the film. It's really good, and it's beautiful scenery, places, and you're like, wow, you know, and I think he's the one that took that famous photo of like hundreds of people like lined up to go to Everest, you know, like right at the peak. He was sort of coming down as all that was happening. So it's a good movie. You know?
Yeah, that's a great rec. I'll definitely check that out.
Yeah.
The landscape is nuts. I mean, every now and then you'd walk away from the group and then a little ways, and you got to walk slow up there, 14,000 feet. It's one thing to go up there for a day, but we were there for 6 nights at that elevation. And you do get better as time goes on. Like the first day or so, we really just acclimated in the town of Leh, which is where you fly in. It's actually a big military town. Given, you know, strategically, it makes sense given where it is, kind of wedged between Pakistan and China, and, you know, close to this Kashmir region, which has been disputed for decades now. In spite of that, if you know, it's kind of like stably unstable, if you will. It's kind of been this way for so long that everybody's just kind of used to it. And there was, you know, a lot of tourists move through there, particularly actually in June for trekking. Very few birders go up to Ladakh. Really very few. More and more go for snow leopards. But we were kind of talking about this just before we started recording, how, you know, 10 years ago, almost nobody saw snow leopard. It was something that just, I mean, they still call it the gray ghost. It's a, you know, it's sort of a phantom of an animal. And it's not easy to see even now, but these trips are getting them, you know, if you spend six nights or so, your chances of seeing 1 or 2 cats are pretty high. It'd be rare to spend that amount of time and not see one at all. The typical experience is that they are, you know, not close. Many of the people there are using 600, 800 millimeter lenses to try to get some kind of imagery of these cats, because they, you know, like we're talking about, this landscape is huge. You're looking very often dawn and dusk at these ridge tops, hoping to see something moving along the ridge, and so it's still hard, but sightings are, if not routine, very regular now. We saw 2, the first of which was deeply satisfying, I will say. It was really nice. It was not close. It was probably about 1 kilometer or so distant, but we had scopes, and we got to watch it for over an hour. And, you know, it was when we first got to it, our guide, Gulzar Hussain, is an amazing guy. Ladakhi, his family's been there for 10 generations. And he's done a lot of studies on the culture and history of the place. And he's doing a lot of recording of oral history of the nomadic people that live there, which is a lifestyle which you can imagine is kind of on the way out at this point. So there's much to preserve in terms of the oral tradition. But we get there to this site. We heard that there was a snow leopard. We get there and we see this thing that looks like a rock. And, you know, I'm there. Doug Gotchfeld was my roommate. Dave Stayskull was there with his wife, Julie. And we're looking at each other. We're like, that's a snow leopard? Really? And Gulzar's like, you guys, you're not going to believe me. You just got to wait for the thing to stand up or move, because it just looked like a square rock, you know? And it's kind of backlit too, which didn't help matters. Finally, you know, we're watching it for maybe 10, 15 minutes, and the thing lifts its head up, and you're like, oh, and you realize it's actually closer than you realize. And then you can start to see the pattern, this gray cat with some darker spots. And it just kind of stretched a little and looked around, and then it put its head back down, slept for another 10 minutes or so. And then it's put its head up, started yawning, and that was a good sign. Our other local guide, Norbu, was like, it's yawning. It's yawning a lot. This means it's going to get going. And then before you know it, it's licking its paws. It's licking its it's lifting its hind leg and, grooming tender areas and, kind of
Doing
stretching.
cat things.
It was doing cat things, man. It was doing cat things. It reminded me of our cat Luna, who's just like, she naps 17 hours a day. And, but when she gets up, she kind of takes her time and stretches and cleans herself. And, she doesn't just kind of roll out of bed and go, she's very fastidious and takes care of herself. And the snow leopard was quite the same way. And finally, it starts to stand up, stretch, starts spraying different rocks. And then we watched it kind of snake down this hill. And at times it was trotting. And at other times it was just kind of ambling around. You could really see the power of the shoulders and the crazy, crazy long tail these things have, And eventually we watched it kind of curl up behind one of these big red pincushion plants. And when it did that, it was, if you didn't know it was there, it just vanished in front of you. And eventually the sun was getting lower and lower. We had to bolt, but we watched it for probably close to an hour and a half and then and moved on. We had one other the next day. Mind you, this was day 5 that we found our snow leopard. We'd had 4 days of looking around and not seeing any cats. And that was tough.
Yeah. Are you at your lodge and scanning from there? Are you out on trails? What does the looking entail?
Yeah, so good question. So basically we had our lodge. We're at this place called the Snow Leopard Lodge where we stayed. And
right.
There we have 3 different vantage points from which we scan. And so there's 3 there, but then we look out on kind of a couple different valleys there. So kind of all around you is good snow leopard territory. They frequently see snow leopard from right there. But then we also had spotters out, local Ladakis who had been trained to spot and track snow leopards in all the other valleys around there. Maybe not all, but a bunch of them. And, and they knew, for instance, that in the valley we were in, that there had been 7 different snow leopards in the last few weeks that had come through there. These things keep big territories, I want to say 40, 50 square miles often. And so they find tracks, they find scent spray. Sometimes they move more at night. Very frequently, they do not move in the middle of the day. So mostly our mornings and evenings were right near our lodging there, and we would take one of the 3 different spots. The other thing that's crazy is the climate there. We had mornings where Dave had a thermometer, and it would say it was 15 degrees in the morning. I mean, it's cold and dry. And then, 3 in the afternoon, we're looking at a snow leopard one day, and it's 75 degrees. That morning, it was 15 degrees. We're talking about a 60-degree Fahrenheit swing in temperatures. In the morning, you're worried about frostbite, and then you're so high up in the afternoon, you're actually worried about sunburn. And it's just, it's incredibly dry climate, pretty hard on the sinuses for some folks. So yeah, we would spend a lot of time scoping from right around one of those 3 vantage points, and then we would get calls or about tracks someplace, or even a snow leopard sighting itself, and we'd go to other valleys, kind of trying to track these tracks, put ourselves in a good position to spot an animal on the move. And after 4 full days of not seeing much, we were really starting to feel the pressure. But thankfully, day 5, we had beautiful sightings. Day 6, we had this other one that we saw. We actually tried to hike up closer to it. It was a crazy hike. We gained about half the group tried it. The other half, just said, I'm not even going to bother doing that because it was pretty much straight uphill. And I was like, I'm going to try. I was like, I might slow you guys down. So just you guys go. If I make it, great. If not, tell my relatives and my wife that I loved her. And, so I head up, we head up and eventually we worked into a position where we could see the snow leopard, but it actually wasn't much better than where we started. But that ended up being an animal with 2 cubs. From where I was, I was not able to see the 2 youngsters, which were, I think, about 8 months. So they were pretty big. But others were actually able to see this female trotting along with 2 youngsters as well. I was just able to see the female sitting on a rock. So that was pretty intense. I wasn't sure in my life. I kind of had resigned. I like cats. One of the things I really want to do at Hillstar Nature is some birding and big cats trips. And, this trip I saw 3 cats. It's something I'm eager to do again. Snow leopard was not something I ever thought I would really have a chance to see. So to be able to watch one at length and then see another pretty well also was definitely, really a dream come true.
Cool. I'm thinking of doing tours with weird rodents, like I don't know if there's a market for that, capybaras and viscachas and
exactly.
all those things we've talked about in the past.
Tucos,
Tucos, pacas.
Yeah. We talked about our squirrel tour, but maybe maybe you're onto something now.
The ideas flow in this podcast like you wouldn't believe,
Mm-hmm.
We were pondering too, like now that the snow leopard, God, I don't want to say, you just described something that's really hard. Like this is hard, but it's easier to see them than it was 10 years ago. That now maybe the cat that is one of the hardest is the Andean cat, which is a small cat up in actually a broad part of the southern Andes, I actually saw a photograph somebody took of one just above Santiago, like where the place where he took this photograph, you could see the city of Santiago below.
Oh, wow. Was it a camera trap or it's a camera trap?
I think so. Yeah.
Probably.
I think so.
Yeah. Wow.
But it's crazy to think these cats are actually that close to a big city, yet nobody sees them. There's even a researcher who I think has been studying them for I don't know how many years, and he's never seen one. He studies the scat and puts out the camera traps, but
Yeah, I stayed with a guy who had done his PhD on snow leopards, and during the time that he was working on his PhD, never actually saw one. But that was back in the 80s. We didn't have the technology we do now. We didn't have, the knowledge or there's so many tools we have at our disposal now, including more people that know how to look for these things. But I did think it was crazy that he'd never saw one during the, those years that he was doing his PhD. And then he was telling me that he finally glimpsed one years later when he was visiting Ladakh. But the second one he ever saw there was he was staying at a homestay in Ladakh, which is the way, still a fair number of people, that's the way they travel there, is they stay in homestays, which is pretty fascinating thing to do, actually. We visited a couple, though we didn't stay in one. And he said that he was there cleaning dishes in his homestay, and somebody comes up to the window and starts yelling, "Shan, Shan!" And, the Shan is the local name for the Ladakhi name for snow leopard. He starts going, "Shan, Shan." He's like, "What's this about?" And he comes out the house, and he said he could just see this little girl who's like tugging on the leg of like a goat or a sheep. I can't remember. She's like pulling it. And then he gets around the corner a little more, and he can see the whole thing. And there's a snow leopard on the other side of the goat. And she's literally like trying to, keep this goat away from the snow leopard. And he was like, that's the second one I ever saw, was like, trying to steal a goat from this farmer. And this little girl's like, trying to keep it. And he's like, oh, it just blew his mind,
Wow.
Crazy.
That's pretty wild. I was actually thinking too, the famous pumas of Torres del Paine in Chile, that 20 years ago, I mean, they were there. People saw them. The park rangers would see them. There were photographs. But now, like you can, hire a guide and they'll show you one. I mean,
Yeah.
pretty much no fail. So we've learned a lot about how to find these animals and their patterns, right? Some of it is just knowing what they do, and then you can look at the right spots, and it's pretty amazing. Sort of these cat opportunities are out there now.
I think the smaller cats, like Indian cat's a pretty small cat, right? Like that's sort of house cat size thing. Some of these smaller cats that are really rare, really hard to see. I feel like that's the next thing that a lot of folks want to try to figure out. Well, while we were traveling around in central India, Kristen and I, there was a ranger who took us around one afternoon. And that morning, he'd photographed with his cell phone a rusty spotted cat, which is like super hard to see. And usually they're only, especially in places where there's tigers around and bigger cats like leopards, these things are really hard to find. But he'd been in there just after dawn and had this thing just hanging around the foot of a tree. Super lucky sightings like that are just really rare. But I feel like as time goes on, and of course, a lot of cats are in big trouble in terms of conservation and population. I do feel as though camera traps are a big help in trying to figure out how these things move and what they do. And so it'll be interesting to see how that progresses with some animals like Andean cat, or one of the ones I want to see, Al, is cod, which is another good Chilean cat. Cool name.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because the Chilean name for it is guiña. So cod might actually be a Mapuche name. I'd have to look it up, but. How that name came about. They're tiny though, tiny.
Yeah.
One of the smallest cats I think around in the New World. Hey, I got a bird question.
Lay it on me.
So high elevation things that I've sort of seen in the book, and it just, I don't know why, like my attention, it was like, whoa, I want to see that thing one day. And I've never seen a lammergeier. That's a different situation. But it's the grandala. Did you see those?
Well, no. I am with you. It is something I must see someday.
Part of it's the name, right? Yeah. Grandala. You know, and you're like, what is that thing? Like when I saw the name,
purple blue thrush for folks that haven't seen. It's like electric purple blue, and it's like old world thrush, right?
You took a mountain bluebird, you put it in Photoshop, and you like increase the saturation to the point where it looks unreal. You know, that's sort of like where you're like, there's no bird that's that blue. Yeah,
and they're in flocks sometimes. So you might see, like if you get a storm drive stuff down slope, you might see a dozen or even like a couple hundred in an area at once, which would just be mind blowing.
So, I mean, like in Bhutan, the high mountains are sacred, right? So you can't go up there, and we really don't go to the high sort of barren tops of the mountain, when we do Bhutan trips. But it's on the checklist, and I was thinking, well, maybe you saw it because you're going to be up in the sort of higher elevations, but still up there, they're not. You got to go even higher up. Is that the case, or were you not in the right spot?
I think we were more not in the right area. My impression, most folks I know that see them on the China side,
right?
And I think there are some that make it into northern India there, but it doesn't. I don't think of it as a great place for that bird.
Right. Maybe you're too far to the west.
I think
so in the range. And
it's so dry. This part of the Himalayas is so dry. If you go down slope, towards the south west, you really start to get into some high bands of diversity of species. But up where we were, it's just really dry. We did see some birds. It's a really good place for accenters. We had robin accenter was a common bird. Brown accenter we saw. We had, I'm trying to remember I think it is rufous-breasted accenter is the name. And we had black-throated. And the latter two, actually, were both spotted by Dave Stayskull, who's, super sharp birder, from Field Guides and knows Asia birds real well. And by the way, he had one piece of trivia, not related to anything we're really talking about, that I wanted to relay to you both, which is that, do you know, it's a question. Do you know why all cans of beans in Ireland have exactly 239 beans in them?
Is this a real thing?
Well, I'll let you judge.
239 beans.
Well, the answer is because one more would be too farty. Sorry, couldn't resist.
So
Welcome back, George.
Oh yeah, he's thanks, Dave.
Oh God, I was dying when he told me that joke.
I was just thinking, like, while we were talking too, but I'm like, now I got the beans in my head, like, from this Grandala. Like, a cool thing to do would be to see all the birds that have just one word names.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wonder how many there are. But
we had Twite up there, Alvaro. We had Twite up in the mountains there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
So that's another one. These are like the Pele of birds, the Beyonce,
the share, if you will,
the share of
the Madonna.
birds. Like,
yeah,
Madonna. You just one. Killdeer is actually one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Osprey, Sora. Yeah. I like it. I those names all seem to have like a history, to them, something that's going on, and it's so much more interesting than black-throated accenter. In a sense, I'd like to see a black-throated accenter, but it's so that being clinically descriptive to me is not
way more boring. Yeah, like Pyrrhoxia. I have no idea what Pyrrhoxia or Phainopepla even mean, but those are awesome, memorable names because they're so distinct. Yeah,
I can tell you what Pyrrhoxia means. The pyrr is a bullfinch.
Right. Pyrrhura.
Loxia is crossbill. So it's the bullfinch crossbill.
Crossbill, nice.
Something about the bill, the crazy bill.
Some strong etymology there, Al. That's good. I like that. Yeah.
Hey, that's why they hire me on this podcast. Now,
Big bucks.
Phainopepla probably means like, I don't know, red eyes of fire. I don't know that I don't know actually.
Yeah,
but
look that up.
Yeah, somebody should give us a list of all the one word bird names. There's probably a way to do that easily. I bet there's not that many.
The Madanga, that's a good one. A lot of folks don't know.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, it's like I think it's on Buru. It's like one of those Indonesian islands, and it's an arboreal bird that is actually it's currently
is that the pipit.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's how it's okay. It's like a weird pipit thing.
It does have another name as well, but most people, I've always heard it called the Madanga, which to me sounds like another great band name or like an odd fruit or something.
Yeah, and there's what's the little Costa Rican funny little thing that's kind of like a warblery thing with a short tail. Man, I'm just blanking out. You guys know what I'm talking about?
No.
I'll get back to it. I'll sort it out. I'll remember.
For a minute, I thought you were talking about the Acatero olive warbler or something.
That was my first thought.
Yeah.
No, you're talking about the Zeladonia?
That's right.
Zeladonia. Yeah.
The Zeladonia. Which might be the only
wren thrush
bird that also had another name, right?
Which
is a single word, wren thrush.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Zeladonia.
Yeah.
Well, what I was thinking about when you said you spent an hour and a half looking at that snow leopard, do you ever look at a bird when you're out traveling, and maybe a bird you'll never see in your life, and maybe you see it see again in your life, and you look at it for like 10 seconds, and you're like, wow, I had a great look at that bird, and then think about what a short period of time you actually got to spend with that bird is? Or how often have you spent an hour and a half looking at a single bird?
Yeah, not
gulls.
often.
I will do that with gulls.
Yeah. It's true though. And I mean, I feel like a lot of the time, and maybe too, part of it is that we, like with birds, we have, it's like, okay, got this bird. There's another bird over there. We got to go. But actually just studying the behavior of a single bird for a length of time, it'd be really rare to do that, I think. Not sure how many times I've done that.
But even if you find a roosting owl or something like that, so it's just sitting there, we as birders don't tend to watch it for a long time. Often they're not doing much.
Right.
But it's interesting. We sort of look at it, we identify it, but we don't start going, oh, okay, let's count the bars on the underparts, or like, is it streaked? Is it this or is it that? We just sort of go, oh, it's eastern screech owl. There it is, poking its head out. And we sort of watch it, at the most 5 minutes? That's probably a long time for any single bird. That's a good question. Why don't we? Yeah, why does a cat get an hour and not, an owl?
Or even like a semi-sandpiper that's within a flock of other shorebirds, like you could study its movements compared to other species. And, I feel like we kind of pick that up a little bit, but we don't it's true. We don't spend inordinate amount of time really studying one particular subject like that.
Yeah. Well, I'll admit, when I started like doing more trips for birds and doing some things like maybe a bird that I've looked at in a field guide since I was 5, and then you see it, and then it's not anticlimactic, but it's just like,
sometimes it is.
There it is.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes it is. Yeah. And then you tick it off and you're
on to the next.
Tick the bird off. You tick the bird off your list. And then, you're on to the next one. I was kind of thinking about that. Well, I've been to Central America, I don't know, half a dozen times or something. So I'm seeing a few birds and I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen that before. And I'm like, I've seen that for maybe 10 seconds before. It's just a weird, birding's weird.
Yeah, I get a different also thought that you're mentioning there, like about going to Central America. And I've been to, a lot of places in Latin America where you see a toucanet, and there's like a, emerald toucanet or one of the various toucanets. And sometimes it's different species, and you might even in a tour have 2 or 3 species. But to me, it's like it's a toucanet. It's like, it's one thing, you know what I mean? Like in my head, it's like they're all kind of the same. And it's odd that there's some birds that sort of fit that mold. Some of the woodpeckers too, like that there's a red-bellied woodpecker type, in many places, and they really don't attract your attention in a way that, you think they would, because they are a separate critter, right? It's sort of interesting how the birder brain works, yet, we see, a different plover, and we're all over it, because it's like, oh my God, it's like, it's different from the other one, yet, toucanets, they just don't, it's not that I don't like them. They sort of like all are like, I got to say, what's the toucanet here again? Like, which one is it? And
which greenlet is this?
Yeah. Which greenlet is this? Yet on the other hand, some of the Elenias, which all look the same, I kind of really have them in my head as like super different things. Like I'm into them. Kind of not that into toucanets.
What a freak. You're such a freak, man. Man.
But I think it's a good thing to think about, right? How we react to different birds. Like some of them like attract your something about them, and it's not just color.
Yeah.
Nothing more amazing than a toucanet. But like to me, it's sort of like, oh, the toucans I like, and mountain toucans are awesome. Yeah, toucanets, I don't know.
Yeah, the one I feel guilty about that I always think are a little bit of a dud are New World parrots. Like, like Amazonas, and I'm kind of like, all right, yeah, fine, whatever, those are great. Like, but go to Australia, and, they got some real parrots over there. That's like, the galahs and the cockatoos and, all the palm cockatoos, all the crazy ones, black cockatoos. I mean, those are nuts. But one thing I wanted to ask you, Mollee Brown, is you have recently been to a country that very few people I know have birded, and that is El Salvador. What was that like?
Yeah. Well, I met up with a few friends that I met who are from El Salvador that are in the birding co-op. So one of those cases that I feel like happens a lot in birding and happens a lot in pandemic times where like I feel like I know them really well, even though, I've never seen them face to face. We've been on a lot of Zoom chats and that kind of thing. So yeah, I showed up there and just went for a little crash course. 5 days, so 3 full days. I came in pretty early in the morning and then left early in the morning. And yeah, I got there and met some people and they said, so what do you think about El Salvador? Like, what did you think it was like before you came here? And I said, honestly, I didn't have a lot of notions of it before. You just don't hear a lot. I did a little bit of research on my own and kind of just sat back and thought I was along for the ride. So that was fun too. El Salvador was absolutely fantastic. It was so much fun and so lovely and vibrant and wonderful people that I was around the entire time. My friend Benjamin put together a really awesome little itinerary that was just experiencing a lot. But yeah, so it's tiny, the size of, I think, Massachusetts roughly.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes from sea level to, I think it was in the 7,000s or so, the highest mountain range that kind of is up at the top there, or sort of in the middle of the country. We went from, we just sit back and forth all over the place. Really incredible infrastructure. So easy to get around. The roads were fantastic. I woke up one morning. I'm talking like I was there for weeks. I really wasn't, but we fit a lot in. The first night first day I went along the coast, just kind of got an introduction, had some really good seafood and stayed in El Imposible National Park. Just in a little cabanas there, women owned, met a lot of women guides and women business owners and that kind of thing too. It was really fun. But it was very quiet at the national park, and it had a really good trail system, and we just stayed right outside the gate. I mean, literally it was like the only building. The road kind of dead ended there. So we woke up and just walked outside and we're into the park and spent a morning up there. Went down to the coast for lunch, which was, I don't know, an hour, 15 minutes or something, and had more seafood, and kind of worked our way through the lowlands and wound our way back up to another national park. Los Volcanos. Should have remembered that. Had several volcano views.
The photos you posted of those volcanoes were, the scenery looked intense.
Let me tell you, that was from my hotel room.
Oh my God.
It was amazing.
Cool.
It was so beautiful. It was wonderful. And I always love being in the mountains, and it was great. Did some birding there, worked our way basically down the mountain all morning, and went back to Suchitoto, which is closer to the Guatemala border, that I think is fair to compare to like a small scale Antigua, Guatemala kind of vibe, which I think is actually a popular stopover place for folks driving through Central America to get to Antigua. It's only, I think, like 3 or 4 hours away, but just a really cool, like Spanish colonial style town. It had a huge lake. We went out and took a really nice boat ride and hung out there. And I met birders in the communities everywhere we went. And it was just the level of community involvement and interaction. JJ Juan was another guide who was with us the whole time, who I met there, and he lived in Suchitoto. He taught birding classes and nature classes in his community there, and photography classes and cooking classes. And I met a lot of people who were just hanging out. We did a lot of just hanging out, like stopping by someone's house and having some watermelon and saying hi and that kind of thing. And it was like that everywhere we went. There was such a cool network of guides that just, there was so much community involvement in all of it. And I felt like everybody kind of had some little facet in birding or nature or habitat management. They were really focusing on connecting wildlife corridors from the mountains to coast, and had some stretches like that. Lots of shade-grown coffee plantations. Visited some indigo farms, or a couple indigo farms that just also focused on habitat management and bird habitat in particular. And I think an endangered lizard, and I'm blanking on the name of it too, that was on that place too. So anyway, that was the whole trip. Just riding around, eating a lot of good food, just having really enjoyable birding, lots of opportunities to be in the water, and with really cool people who were all friends and treated me like a friend. And it was really fun.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Two questions, Mollee. One, did you get those earrings there that you're wearing, and what are they? What are they of? And two, what was the seafood? What kind of seafood did you have?
Okay, earrings. No, I got these in Panama last year. They look like feathers. It was just a shop that took bike tires and made them into different things.
Oh wow!
And yeah, these are just like, I mean,
that's
I
awesome.
Call them a raven feather or something. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, thanks. And seafood, there were lots of just big. I had like a lot of like ceviche and that kind of things. A lot of avocado. Actually, reminded me of those avocado salads we had in Uganda.
Yes.
So I was kind of chasing that down. And they did a lot of big like boils that had like lobster and crab and that kind of thing too, and just like it looked like big Cajun bowls or something, and that
like
kind of
paella
thing.
kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So lots of seafood options. I was stuffed the entire time I was there. Yeah. We also had pupusas, and I'd heard a lot about pupusas in El Salvador before.
What is that? I've never heard of it.
It's
Really?
it's just like street food.
Yeah, that's like a big thing here in the Bay Area.
Huh.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
We
wow.
have so many people from El Salvador around, so.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I had one in Costa Rica too, and honestly, I was disappointed in that one. But just like a bean or rice or maybe pork or something filled sealed tortilla, and
Sort of burrito-esque.
Sort of. It's like more like calzone, like a kind of thing, like kind of closed in and baked in,
Gotcha.
and then just seared, and you'd put some salsa on it, or like a coleslaw on top, like a nice vinegary coleslaw. And we snacked on those too. They were quite good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the food there.
Hey, I've got a first that I didn't want to like interrupt, but I think
I saw the binoculars go up.
You see my binoculars, and I'm like trying to like move my glasses out of the way, and my headphones are. So a prairie falcon just went over.
Oh man.
And
Whoa.
That is pretty rare on the coast here. It's like I actually had to like, write a little rare bird thing for the locals. Like prairie falcon just went over my house.
Wow.
I think third time I've ever seen it in this county after living here decades.
What's that? What's that for the yard? Do you know what species that is for the yard?
Weirdly enough, the second one I ever saw in the county was in the yard. So
oh wow,
I've had it in the yard before.
Wow, that's a hot bird.
Yeah, I know. I was looking at this little raptor, and I was like, flies like weirdly like a nighthawk. What is that thing? And I look, and I was like, oh my god, it's this pale brown falcon. What? Pale brown falcon? And then I was just like, there's that dark underwings and the whole thing. It was kind of a slim male, looked like. That was cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I should do this more.
Yeah. We should keep a lifeless podcast like checklist.
Oh, I like that.
What we get while we're recording.
Yes, that's a great
eBird.
A lifeless list, like if you will.
Lifeless list.
Yes, the lifeless list. Mm-hmm. That'd be really cool.
I got a few here right now. I got violet green swallows, golden crown sparrow.
Yeah, I'm inside the den here where I am seeing curtains. So not much.
But,
well, when I stare off to my right, I'm looking out the window. And Alvaro, when you lean forward, I can like see sunlight and like yard and your glasses reflection.
Yeah,
so maybe we can all see
there's
what's
a white
in Alvaro's yard.
It's sort of I kind of position myself like when I work to be looking out just because these things happen, like I've had a lot of good birds just pop in while I'm working, and I'm like, is that a whatever? It's like, oh my god, So
yeah. I was thinking about that when I said like how long we're looking at birds. I mean, the birds I look at the most are definitely the ones that are right here, and like the one mockingbird that sits here on the window feeder. I have spent a lot of time looking at it.
Have you named it yet?
Have not named it.
Yeah,
not really one to name birds.
I knew a mockingbird named Moose once. And Yeah, a friend of mine raised it, and then like it fell out of a nest, and he like raised it and tried to release it, but then it was like tame. But I didn't know this, and I lived like 3 doors down, and it like landed on my head, and I was like, my God, I'm like St. Peter. The birds just come to me. And I was like, dude, I went over. I was like, you're not gonna believe it. I just had like a mockingbird like landing on my head, walking around. He goes, oh yeah, that's moose. Yeah, you met moose.
It's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Oh man,
Was this at the Incognitos?
the Incognitos were just down the street, same neighborhood. Yeah. I've told Alvaro about my neighbors. Yeah,
they're called the Incognitos.
That's their names. My parents used to be like, we're going over to the Incognitos for dinner tonight. And I was like, look, you don't have to tell us their names if you don't want to. And they were like, no, they're like, that's really their names. They're named the Incognitos. Yeah.
So,
Italian couple, I assume. Yeah.
That would be great if they're witness protection and they gave them the name the Incognitos, like
no points for creativity, but
right.
Yeah,
I mean, but it'd be one of those like the perfect foil.
Yeah.
Like nobody would.
Right.
They're obviously
little
not
on the
witness
nose.
protection because
Yeah.
Incognitos.
Nice. Well, guys, we are coming up on the time. Mollee, anything you want folks to know about that you got coming up?
Ooh. Actually, I don't think so. I am so excited. I love trying to spend most of April and May at home. So now I'm just in like, I just want to walk my patch every morning, go camping on the weekends and do stuff around here. So no, always check out the birding co-op.
Yes.
We've always got stuff going on there. Otherwise, just, get out, go birding, enjoy some sunshine and nature or whatever's around you. That's all I got.
Nice. Excellent. Alvaro Jaramillo, how about you, man?
Well, if somebody was like totally like wanting to do something last minute, we could accommodate a couple more on the Hawaii tour, which is in about 10 days or so. So I'm not sure if so by the time it'll be like in a few days, but just let me know with Mandy Talpas leading that trip, and that Mollee co-led that trip last year. And it's fun, interesting. But, I think we've talked about it in the past. It's one of those places where you really are thinking, I better go there sooner rather than later, as some of these birds are getting rarer by the year. But it's just great, a place, beautiful, lots of seabirds and other things to look at. And the introduced birds are kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I wanted to relay to you both before we sign off here that Will Smith has been banned from the Academy Awards for 10 years. So that's breaking news. If you watched the Oscars recently, you would have seen Philadelphia's own, West Philadelphia born and raised, Will Smith gave Chris Rock quite a pop in the face. But anyway, that bit of newsiness aside, thanks everybody for listening today.
Well, I had decided I'm never going to go to the Academy Awards after I saw that. I said I'm not going to support this group.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah.
I'm not going. I'm not going to give them my money.
That was the last straw for you, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is this Life List officially boycotting the Academy Awards?
That's
I
big
think
news.
so. I mean, unless they want us, if they want to give us an award, then we can kind of.
Maybe we can sit up on stage and we could
reconsider.
Yeah. I think we should start Life List by saying, the award-winning Life List podcast, even though we haven't won an award, we just pretend. I mean, that's that's the world today. You could just do.
Yeah. I don't see anything wrong with that. Yeah.
Right. And say we have an Academy Award, actually. Best.
That might prevent us from going there for the next 10 years. We'll see.
I know.
Yeah. Well, I would encourage folks also to keep an eye on the Hillstar Nature website. We will be putting together an India trip coming up for tigers and seeing the Taj Mahal and some other spots. Also have a Tanzania trip for next year that is still got some spots, trying to do the ultimate safari, the Ngorongoro Crater, the Serengeti, and Tarangire National Park. See the Great Migration. And again, I mentioned I like cats. There's three large cats there we'll be in pursuit of. So lion, leopard, and cheetah, among a multitude of other animals. So keep an eye out for that. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Stay tuned for another episode coming up soon. Thanks, Mollee. Thanks, Al. Everybody have a great day.
All right,
Thanks,
bye-bye.
everybody.